used for informational and educational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever by Draper Gorin Blockchain, aka DGB, the presenter, or other associated parties for the content being provided. Please do your own due diligence and seek proper counsel.
Boom! Welcome to what are we calling it today? The Crypto Family Hang Session, number 21. With
it's a better week this week.
Greg. Say that again.
It's a better week this week. Bitcoin's back up.
Boom! Yeah.
I think last week was really
bad. Before we jump in, just remind everyone. I'm Alon Gorin. We got David Rankin from DGB here, and we got Greg from Rivet. But DGB, Draper Gorin Blockchain, is a venture studio. We invest in early stage companies, and sometimes we incubate our own companies in the blockchain space. And if you want to hang with us or pitch us, go to dgb.vc, or even just send us a note on the contact form. You'll join our newsletter. And if you're watching live, chat, feel free to comment, say something in the chat. We can bring it up on screen and all that. And if you're not watching us live, go follow us at one of those places so that you're notified next time we do. We're trying to do this every Tuesday, 10 a.m. We're 21 weeks in and having some fun. All right, but we got Greg here from Rivet. What's up, Greg?
Good to be here, man. It's a cool show. I like the graphics. The song in the intro was just wicked. I love.
Hey, that was a Nardcore band from Oxnard, California, called Out of Trust.
That's awesome.
Some cool buddies of mine, and they're awesome. Everyone should check them out. And they got a new drummer. I hear,
song, man.
Yeah, I heard they got a new drummer and they're working on a new album. It's going to be pretty radical. I like those guys.
Alon tells me there's some exciting things going on with Rivet.
There are some exciting things going on. Some things we can talk about, some things we can't. But what's fun about having Greg on is he's not just one of the founders of Rivet, which is a rad infrastructure company, and we'll talk about that. But he's also a cypherpunk nerd, crypto participant like us. He's got all sorts of goofy NFTs, just like we do. He plays around with us in the metaverse too, and so we can talk about everything with him. But I guess first, Greg, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your background or talk about what Rivet does? And we can get nerdy and dive in, or we can just high level too. Either way.
Yeah. So Rivet itself is, blockchain node infrastructure, and we've done it a different way. Like we created an open source stack that allows people to, people specifically ourselves, but like anybody who wants to can run this, and it makes node infrastructure scalable. You quickly find out if you want to run any given blockchain. If you want to run an instance of Geth, then you want to build an application backed by it, right? The second you need 2 instances in order to handle your traffic, you begin to realize the nightmare that you have just entered, right? Yeah. And the thing that we have built makes that super easy, right? So that you can scale it operationally, and if you do it right, very inexpensively.
So it used to be there's a few providers, like to be fair to the community, there's a few providers now that make it somewhat easy to just connect to a node and just start working. But if you're a company that does a lot of requests, it can get really, really expensive. And it used to be, years ago, that the companies that were doing things like that would basically run their own nodes, right? They'd run their own Ethereum nodes, and they do exactly what you were saying, and it gets really complicated, really fast, and really buggy. And what ends up happening is each company would hire somebody, right? They would literally have one of their engineers spend most of their time just keeping their nodes running, making sure it's working. Then they would spend a lot of money either on like their own servers or co-location stuff or just AWS or whatever to run this stuff, and it was crazy expensive. It would get expensive.
I mean,
really
there are a
fast.
million ways to do it wrong.
So
that's one thing about it.
Yeah. So I will say, like David Blesnak, our partner, right? He was running a company called Total. They were the first people to do DEX aggregation and DeFi liquidity aggregation. The way that 1inch and 0x does now, they were doing it crazy early, way before any of them. Actually, everyone in the communities, when those groups launched, were calling them like copycats of Total, and we're like, oh, you guys just stole Total's idea and maybe some of their code or whatever. I have no idea, but basically they created that category. Those other groups launched tokens and stuff and stole some of their thunder or whatever, but Total did really, really well, and we're really stoked. But when Total was starting to scale, I remember Blesnak telling me how crazy it was that one of their engineers couldn't get any real work done on the product because they were spending all of their time making sure that the nodes were working and things were working, because it was really expensive. And also they were spending thousands of dollars a month on servers and stuff like that. And he said, you got to meet the people from Rivet, because I met them. We switched over to Rivet and we're saving thousands of dollars a month on infrastructure costs. But also that engineer, who is very expensive, crypto engineers that know what they're doing, could actually work on the product now and didn't have to spend any of their time on that. And he's like, you just got to meet this team. And so that was the first kind of my first meeting with Greg and Austin and Beth, the team behind Rivet. But then after getting to know them, very quickly realized, oh shit, I really want to be a part of this team and have them join our family and me join theirs, because they're just awesome people. And you can go, what's really cool, and now I'm just kind of kissing your guys' butts, but what's really cool is anytime you go anywhere in the crypto industry that is, especially in the Ethereum community running infrastructure, things like that, you get to the nerdy technical crew, you talk to them and you mention Rivet, nobody says anything but crazy positive stuff. And basically all you hear is like, oh my God, they're like the smartest people. I don't know how they do XYZ. And even amongst the sort of competitors to Rivet, which aren't really competitors because some of them actually utilize your services behind the scenes too, right? So it's these guys just know infrastructure, know how to scale it in a way that most people in our industry don't. So your clients basically offload that to you, but also, anybody who needs to connect to the network can use you. Like you can switch your node within MetaMask on your personal stuff to Rivet if you wanted to. I remember I used to share that every once in a while. I should reshare it. I called it upgrade your MetaMask, which is a little bit, I think it's an upgrade. There's some privacy things that you guys do.
There are some serious advantages.
Yeah. Well, okay. So tell me, what are the serious advantages for the average person?
Well,
it's not super technical.
So first I want to talk to like our core people, right? Like we built Rivet positioned for developers, for people building, right? The whole thing was about not necessarily giving the lowest cost possible option to everyone who wants to build in the space, right? That was an ancillary, sort of side effect of building something that was meant for people who want to create in this space and to take the burden off of them, so that like you said with David's engineering team, right? Give them the cycles to care about the things they want to care about, right? And we positioned the product to be intentionally situated where they wouldn't have to futz with it. They wouldn't have to worry about how many requests they were using right out of the gate. The whole thing was tailored towards builders, right? So that not only was it a solution that took their minds away from the problem directly, but a solution that they could trust the fundamentals of enough to never worry about it, so that they could focus on really creating. And that's where we started trying to head. And what we ended up with, was ultimately the real power was in the open source piece. But for regular folks, we also have, some really huge pieces of privacy protection that you won't see elsewhere. For instance, like we do minimal data capture and retention, right? That is something that we consider a security feature, but it's also a privacy feature, right? Because if all we're doing is keeping the minimum amount of information we need to interact with people using the service, then there's no reason for anybody to attack the service. And if they tried, they would only find information that was, maybe a week old. So there's just not a trove of information there to attack. And what we don't cover with that is a privacy policy that's super strong. Most privacy policies actually go out of their way to evade liability, right? That it's really more of a protect us from your rights to privacy policy for most companies. And what we've done is we've created a policy that says, actually, we're going to take responsibility for this in a way that other companies do not, such that, we have, for instance, a clause right out of the gate that says, if we change the way we interpret this, even if we don't change a word of it, we'll notify you. And these are some of the things that we've done just to make it so that the people who are in this space, who are in it for the reasons that we got into it, that are cypherpunks in the core sense, right, can feel at home using a centralized service so long as one needs to exist, right?
Well, there's also just, for example, all these solutions, as far as I know, for infrastructure are centralized, and groups who are like DAOs and organizations like that, let alone somebody who wants to use it with a little more privacy in mind. But let's say you're a DAO. DAOs, I don't know what kind of hoops they have to jump through to use those centralized services, because those centralized services don't allow you. Most of them don't even allow you to pay in crypto, which is right. Hilarious. And I know that you guys allow people to pay in crypto and
sign up via Web3 if you want.
Yeah,
so you can connect your wallet,
Web3, which is totally different from anybody else in the space.
Yeah. That's and some of our favorite longest standing customers, like love the guys over at My Ether Wallet. They're doing some really cool stuff these days with their encrypt offering and things like that. But they've always connected to us through Web3 and paid, using our crypto connection. So and that's just something that we wanted to offer out of the gate.
It drives me nuts. So I have like a couple of pet peeves. Your guys' service is a more enterprise. And I guess I could do it in this way, but I always had two things that I thought were nutty in our space. The first thing was, for the longest time, and now people are better, but it's still not great. A lot of consumer products you couldn't use on mobile in crypto because the mobile interface just didn't work or was broken or whatever. And that's just nutty. So I used to do a thing where I'd meet companies, like when I'd be at an event or something like that, where I'd say, if I can use your product on the flight, on the way home from my phone, I'm your customer from this point. and 99% of the time it was easy for me to say that because I knew it wouldn't work or whatever. And some of the people didn't even know if it would work. That's the crazy thing.
You encountered our mobile first design, didn't you?
I remember I did. I was able to sign up. I remember back in the day, I saw the demo day presentation at Boost up in San Mateo for unstoppable domains. They had just launched, and I said, this is really cool and neat. I'm going to try to do it mobile on my way home. It was one of the first companies I'd made this proclamation, and it worked. And I was like, oh shit, so you just knew they were going to be slightly ahead of the curve in terms of product. But the second thing that's like one of my pet peeves is crypto companies that don't allow you to pay for the product in crypto. And that's usually on the enterprise side or like an infrastructure side more than like a consumer play. Although there's the opposite when it comes to consumer stuff, because there'll be like an NFT platform that only accepts crypto. And I'm like, well, if you want the mainstream people to come in, maybe you do allow people to use their Apple Pay or something like that. That's a flip side of it. But like so many people who provide infrastructure like you guys on or provide like enterprise style service don't allow you to sign up and pay in crypto. And I think that's the weirdest thing, providing infrastructure for an industry you won't accept yourself, or you just.
It always struck me as cynical. Like these people were doing a picks and shovels play, and it's like you might as well say picks and shovels for sale, and just put a sign up because we're not really invested. We're just going to skirt the advantage.
Yeah, we used to have to jump through some hoops when I was organizing more events and things like that. We had this issue with accepting crypto in that, like, we had such a high overhead of paying the convention center and the service providers for that we needed US dollars, and we didn't want to deal with the crypto side. But that was mostly because people were trying to pay us in their weird tokens and things like that, and that was something we didn't want to do.
You can't take
but like that was a problem. Like we couldn't force force the convention center to sell coffee and accept crypto, right? Either they sell coffee or they don't. And we couldn't like say, hey, we want to bring in our own vendor that will accept crypto, because that was against the rules of a convention center, right? Because they have like
conventions are so overregulated.
Oh, it's not that they're overregulated. They probably are, but I wouldn't know. But all of the locations are unionized in a way that actually hurt them. Not all of them, right? Like I do believe in the general idea of most of the unions, but they've gone so overboard in some ways where it's like, oh, you want to sell something to your people, you're not allowed to. And we go, well, what if we pay you in cash for everything, but we have our own person charging, $1, and you just provide free coffee or something, and we just, have somebody standing in front of it. They're like, oh no, if somebody on your team is standing in between the coffee and then you have to hire one of our people, and our people aren't allowed to touch crypto. Like it was always we tried to find workaround. Like the closest
a buddy of mine.
Or go ahead.
A buddy of mine once upon a time tried to start a project in the event space because of the potential power of crypto to get around that and sort of just force what comes to you when you rent a convention space to have to deal with whatever he wanted to do, because he was trying to do innovative stuff and blocked at every turn by the convention runners. So it's a tough challenge. Like when people have this locked in mindset, right?
It was money transmission laws. Yeah. Well, and it was partly on us. We chose to do an event at a venue that had restrictions, right? The issue was there weren't a lot of big enough venues in certain cities that didn't have requirements like that, right? And then
it was a cool venue.
So it's cool in many ways, and it's not in many others. And you have to play the game. But see, look, Pravi just said Bitcoin conference claims they couldn't find a hotel in Vegas to accept Bitcoin payments for the convention space. But you know what, Pravi, it's kind of true, because even the only places we found in Los Angeles that were big enough to host the events that would allow us to do things like that were like certain weird big hotels that then had like, oh, sure, you can do it, but there's $500,000 a day minimum food budget for the hall of that size. And we're just like, it would be impossible for us to run a successful conference. And at the same time,
everybody's hypoglycemic.
My job, our job wasn't even to run a super profitable conference. It was just to run a great conference for industry, break even, and be able to share our portfolio companies and meet all the people who are doing cool things. That was my agenda. It wasn't ever to make money off the conference. And once you do something like that and you have all these food and beverage minimums, I can't give all of the members of Pravi's meetup group a free ticket to the event or a discounted ticket, because it would cost me $100 per person who walked through the door to feed them.
Eventually, some of these institutions are going to probably want some Bitcoin, so maybe they can help work some of these issues out with these conferences.
Yeah, the thing is, there's just too many. The bigger the bureaucracy, the more ingrained and old school their own technology and their contracts and things are, right?
There'll be a point when supply will be short.
Yep.
Well,
yeah, eventually it's going to be.
Well, look. So these institutions are going to be like, we need some Bitcoin. What do you mean? If we held a convention, these guys will bring Bitcoin and spend their Bitcoin at the convention center. They'll be like, we should run these conferences.
Look, if you can convince
It'll probably happen.
AEG that they need Bitcoin on their balance sheet, maybe there is a way. But the
So
problem
BlackRock needs to
is,
start sponsoring these conferences so they can get Bitcoin and people can pay. in
yeah,
Bitcoin.
the
Sure,
problem
BlackRock
is,
can make a move.
yeah, well, the thing
I'm partners
is
with BlackRock. That's fine.
accepting Bitcoin for ticketing and things like that is more trivial, right? Because there are products that exist to just accept. But once you're in the convention center, it's getting the merchant services company that they have a contract with to accept crypto is the issue. And the more big and bureaucratic a venue is, the more big and bureaucratic their payment system is that they've probably been using for 20 years. And those people don't want to change things, because if they have to make some change, then they might have to change thousands and thousands of Visa and MasterCard terminals across their thing, which they don't actually have to do. But they don't know that, and there's just it's more and more bureaucracy.
It's fear. It's still fear of the new.
Even though Stripe dropped Bitcoin, Stripe is apparently picking up stable coins this summer.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
you can be able to transfer stablecoin payments over Stripe.
Yeah, it's such a funny, weird thing, right? Because it's just,
well, and that's why we built our own contract for receiving crypto payments. Like we just we didn't want to have to deal with somebody else's idea of an optimal infrastructure, so we built the payment system contracts ourselves, which made a lot of that easier, right? So we have Stripe, but that's for credit cards, right? And when it comes to anything crypto, it's just our
but you guys know how to deal with the crypto. If Stripe doesn't accept it, then the general person who needs the cash for paying their employees or paying their rent or just doing what they do, then they need a system like Stripe to just make sure US dollars hit their bank account. And that's really easy and possible. Just Stripe got scared of it and didn't want to alienate their customers or whatever. But something interesting, right? We just got off a call with somebody we're partnering with, and they built a really cool thing. They actually won one of the recent ETH hackathons. They won the ETH Dubai hackathon at the Dubai events that were just happening.
Oh, cool.
Because they created a part of their system at the hackathon that basically allows you, as the receiver of tokens from like a rewards pool or from wherever, like let's say you sell something, whatever, and you want to receive your tokens, no matter where the tokens are on an EVM, right? Let's say David Rankin wants to distribute tokens to us as participants in this watching this show. Each time you watch, you get a token, right? And I go, not happening. Yeah, that's true. You go. Let's say he does that contract on Polygon or Arbitrum, and you, Greg, want to get it on the main Ethereum chain, or you want to get it on Base, right?
Right.
Right now, if you wanted to receive it on Base, it's possible to use some bridges and things like that, but you'll have to approve a transaction on one wallet, then switch over to the Base wallet to sign something to receive it. There's usually like 3 or 4 steps in a process like that, and at best 2 from a consumer standpoint. But they created a simple system that allows you to accept that token by signing one from the one wallet when you request to receive it, using which thing. Basically, it finds the correct bridge, bridges it for you, and gets it in your wallet with a single signing transaction. That's nice. Just one example of how UX is going to get, significantly better each step in our process, right? And then imagine if you're using an email-based kind of magic wallet, which is not great for security reasons or whatever, but for receiving tokens in a game or something like that, it might be
something where it's a windfall you wouldn't really get that maybe is a trivial value. But
let's say so all of a sudden that's really significant, because to do those kind of signing of transactions with like a wallet like that is even more annoying, and also confuses the hell out of non-native crypto people, right? And so it's but
it's also a powerful
Evan just shared this is not exactly related, but related, Cryptonomic One ETH Global. Cryptonomic are friends of ours who we've had on the show. Our good friend Mike Radin is a part of the Cryptonomic team, and they won that. So congrats to them. We should have them on. Kevin, we should do a hang session with Cryptonomic soon, just because they're some OGs. But you know, let's.
Congrats on that, guys.
What was that?
If they're watching, congrats! Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I like them. So congrats, Vishak and the whole team there. We met them. They are some of the. Okay, Mike isn't there anymore, but he's, you know, we work with Mike. Mike is a really good dude, and he's at Anchorage now as his full-time gig, but he's a part of he's been a part of lots of communities. We've met that whole Cryptonomic team through Kevin and the whole Tezos community, and they're awesome, but they also build on ETH, so that's important. And Kevin is agreeing, that Mike is a great dude and we love him. I still think, by the way, there was this one random project. Actually, I shouldn't talk about it because I think there might have been something. Okay, I won't talk about it. There was a cool NFT project that Mike helped build one point that was really fun and cool. But yeah, we're part of the family, and that's why DGB, the parent company, our thing says a parent company. I always correct the team, the parent company.
We thank you, Kevin, for the side support.
Yeah, Kevin is
prompting Alon to in conversation.
What was that?
He's prompting you in conversation.
I know Kevin is a great wingman. It's like we just need to have an open invitation for him to just come on screen too, because but it's cool. But remember, actually, I connected you, Greg, and the Rivet team with the Cryptonomic team at one point, because Cryptonomic built the best, in my opinion, indexer products and stuff for Tezos at the time, and now Kevin will be sharing some cool news about those products pretty soon, actually. And I can't, cool. I don't know what I can say out loud. So what I will say is there's going to be more cool shit going on, and we just recently hung out with a lot of members of the Tezos community because they're launching a thing called Etherlink, which is an EVM chain, but it's a layer 2 that resolves to Tezos, which is really interesting. So it's like awesome a Tezos layer 2, but it's an EVM. So it's gonna, I think, create some interesting dynamics and kind of be the best of both worlds and stuff.
Well, it can by taking advantage of that sort of common language in protocol, or rather in client design, that you can get a lot of cross interest, right? Like people building for Polygon being able to trivially transport their work over to Tezos. That makes so much sense, right? This is how we build the multi-chain universe, right? Which is where this is obviously all heading in most folks' opinions who aren't out there still trying to to win some controversy points and build a social following by being maxis. People who are serious about thinking about this, like it's actually going to be RC in the multi-chain universe.
I think so too. And really quickly, it's because I mentioned it, go to blueharbor.us. That's what I was talking about with Kevin. I wasn't sure if it was all public yet, but we'll have Kevin on maybe next week or the week after, and we'll talk really more deeply about Blue Harbor, and you can get to it from tezos.us also. Cool. But yeah, I think there's a multi-chain world, right? Because we always talked about this and it was conceptual, but at this point, right, I'll bring this thing up again because I love this damn slide. But we had that slide, right, that says no one starts an internet company anymore, right? But every company is an internet company now, and it doesn't matter if you're selling tchotchkes at a gift shop. You have a website.
Right. If your hot dog cart does not have integration, then you are you're not a competitive hot dog cart, but your hot dog cart's an internet company, right?
So I think everything's coming on chain, right? And everybody always, right, from the beginning of time in my lifetime of being on the internet and in the technical world, every engineer wants to argue. And it's like lawyers asking a lawyer question. They'll give you 5 different answers. You ask an engineer what the best programming language is to do X, Y, Z. They'll usually give you multiple answers or give you their opinion of the best one, right? And so, and then everyone will argue, oh, this should be built on, this should be a TypeScript front end. No, it should be a this front end. No, it should be that front end. No, it should be HTML5. At the end of the day, all those languages are going to exist for certain people. And I think that Tezos is really important for certain reasons, right? There's no other chain that that ship is fast in a decentralized way as Tezos. And I think that from a enterprise standpoint, it's probably one of the top-notch languages. And it's important. And, an enterprise doesn't give a shit about number go up or number of people degenning into an NFT. It's meaningless.
If anything, they care about it in the inverse sense, right? They want less of that involved to a certain degree, at least right now.
It makes perfect sense. And what's cool about the Etherlink side of the layer 2 is that I can get part of that stability and part of that decentralized infrastructure and something that I believe in, but also I can go onto GitHub and see the million of projects that have been built on different EVM chains. And by changing the RPC and a few basic calls, I can take something that was open source and built on Polygon or Arbitrum and launch it on Etherlink. And it's tapping into a different community of people, different engineers, and people can pick and choose. So I love it because I think there is a future for most of it. Some chains, may not take off, may not work for different reasons, right? But for the most part, when we use the mobile browser on our phone, we're literally in an iOS operating system in a Chromium mobile browser with JavaScript, HTML5, and multiple other programming languages. In the crypto world, we would just think of them as different protocols or different chains or whatever. Right. And, in the future, we're going to be utilizing all of them, right? It's all going to, and so I think there's going to be a lot of really, really interesting, fun things. And by the way,
the best way to have a great idea is what, right? Have a lot of ideas. So we need to have a fertile, broad ground for these ideas to spring from if we're going to have as many as possible.
I think so too. Plus, we should learn more about it because also Rivet should maybe be providing infrastructure for Etherlink. You guys provide infrastructure for a bunch of and things like that.
And we absolutely would love to work with anybody who wants to do that. The important thing is that our open source is supported because Rivet is sort of the today answer to what people ought to be using for the best possible experience on infrastructure. And we'd love to support anybody who's got a community that needs it. But ultimately, right, we're looking to decentralized infrastructure. This is where the future will move.
So I have a question for Greg. Keep going, Greg.
I was just about to or is this segueing a bit to the idea of decentralized infrastructure? But go ahead, please.
No, well, so one of the biggest concerns I have about the decentralized infrastructure and all these second layers, right, is one is interoperability, right? And with the interoperability, you have to run the issue of fragmented liquidity across all these multiple layers, right? And how to address that, right? Like I've gone to protocols on second layers where there's 2 or 3 versions of the same darn token over there because they came through different bridges. And I'm like, this is an issue in this space. And is there ways that we're solving these problems?
Well, I don't think that that's a problem to solve at the infrastructure level, right? I think the infrastructure can, the infrastructure being as broadly accessible as possible to as many new protocols as possible can help alleviate that. But ultimately, that's going to be at the the practical design level of a good token. The ones that design around the idea effectively to avoid liquidity fragmentation are going to be the ones that succeed, and the ones that do not are going to end up in liquidity fragmentation hell, right?
I don't know if they have the ability though, if it's bridges that are allowing the fractionalization. Right now, USDC is doing it right because USDC has this mechanism where you can burn it on one chain and mint it onto a new chain if you're utilizing the APIs. But the thing is like most people aren't building that into the protocol, and maybe they all need to. But maybe there's other alternatives. Either that, or you restrict bridges and say, no, you can only go through one bridge on that channel that breaks and mints a token. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's really going to be a matter of like fucking around and finding out, so to speak, right? Like if people have a new idea about how to approach this and they haven't tried it yet and they want to pull the trigger and they're playing with real value, then
it becomes a problem when there's lending protocols that are based off of this stuff, right? And all of a sudden you have fractured liquidity and you have to pay off loans, and now you can't get your liquidity.
Right. Oh yeah, no, it's a huge challenge. From the infrastructure side, we can help solve that problem by making sure that infrastructure is available for scalable applications on all of these networks that as they become big enough to carry real value. Like the only reason presumably that they don't have a lot of liquidity is because there's not a lot of people building, that there's not a lot actually going on there, that people buy into hype before there is actual
that's the big thing. So I think that a lot of the networks kind of they catch fire and they burn out, right? Because it's the hype of the day and the number go up and it's just the natural degen just migration from place to place, or maybe not natural, the unnatural, the incentive mechanisms that are very short term, right? And unfortunately, that's something to contend with, and people need to think about when they're building in this space, because there has to be some kind of balance of how do you drive incentives but keep people, right?
Well, the problem that we can help solve is the one that says, okay, so we've got this new network that we really believe in. There's all this hype. How do we get enough infrastructure capacity such that people can actually build some of these promising things on it without having to run it themselves, and they run into these huge technical gaps and bottlenecks? Like just hiring a DevOps engineer who understands this stuff is a huge bottleneck for anybody who wants to start a project. And if you want to run your own infrastructure, that's table stakes, right? So the alternative would be to have a provider like Rivet already support the network. But to do that, you run into a sort of cost problem, right? So any infrastructure provider that wants to support a network either has to outlay the money up front because they believe there's enough volume there to make it worth their while, or the community itself has to pay the infrastructure provider to do it.
I think though that,
and you run into a point where that becomes too expensive.
Well, most people,
we solve that by lowering the cost.
Well, Polygon did it at the beginning. Tezos does that still on their main chain, and they're doing it for Etherlink at first, as far as I know. And most chains launch, they have an RPC that the chain itself is running, or they're doing. But what's interesting is that people are, especially if you're launching an EVM chain, Rivet paying them full price is cheaper than doing it yourself. If you're doing it for one chain, you're not doing it efficiently, and you have a team.
Especially when you're just starting out,
right? Especially when
cost advantages are there for the people who are early.
But you also get the instantly get the scaled costs of using Rivet, right? Because you guys even, and then I know, because I know you guys, and to let people a little behind the curtain, I know that the chains and groups that pay you guys directly to provide it for free for the whole for their whole ecosystem are also paying you guys potentially less than advertised costs, because there's a guarantee or there's a certain amount of traffic and whatever.
We have an accessible rate that you can get to. So first off, we have a huge volume discount, right? Like you can get down to 35 cents per 100,000 just by using a lot, right? And buying a lot. You can get down to 25 cents per 100,000 requests by being a partner to us. And you can just contact us, and if we like what you're doing and we want to put our names together and be public buddies, then that's how you get the rest of the way. And that's the price that we give to those guys, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of secret sauce to it. It's just we love what they do and we're friends, and they promote us and we promote them, and that's why you can go to Rivet.link and grab a free ETC endpoint, because they pay us to provide it. So
yeah, and others too, but some aren't publicly known.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. There's others that I obviously am not.
But that's kind of the whole point, right? Is that
Mhm.
we're getting to a point as an industry where there are mature options, right? Like, it's not just about going and signing up somewhere for an API or whatever.
Right.
You can actually go and find the people, because some of the being enterprise providers, for example, you guys also provide some of the infrastructure to other RPC providers and stuff
Yes.
too, or supplement their stuff, because you guys can scale when there's spikes in traffic
Right.
that, in a way that they can't, or
Yeah. Well, if you go on, for instance, if you go on Infura's site and you click on the failover capacity protection option in your account, you are agreeing that when they fall over, that traffic will come to us for the networks that we support.
I didn't know that was publicly known, and
Yep, it is. You can. I mean, it's not super publicized, but it's in their terms. So
yeah. But that's a really interesting thing, right? So when the largest infrastructure provider needs excess capacity, they use you guys, and that means, that, remember when I said upgrade your MetaMask so that if essentially if Infura goes down, you still have a connectivity through Rivet. Infura upgraded
they did.
MetaMask for everyone, so that when they hit excess capacity, and that's crazy, because, like, think about this, in an immature industry, which it was before a partnership like that, and we're still early in the industry, but think about this. Infura powers MetaMask. They're both owned by Consensus, and that's publicly known. When you go and you look at your RPC in MetaMask, it's Infura. But let's say a big NFT campaign, something, or a new exchange launches and airdrops a token, and they're using an Infura endpoint. If they suck up traffic or get such volume, where, how like gas fees on Ethereum or now on Bitcoin, with what's going on now, like, it goes up tremendously because of so much traffic. When that one company, Infura, that does power a lot, maybe a majority of transacting on Ethereum, get a big spike because of something totally unrelated to MetaMask, right? MetaMask would go down because there was no failover or right. There wasn't.
And this could be like any number of things. Like, someone could find some weird exploit where somebody's making an ugly query to Infura and it's knocking over their EVM servers, right? Like, the way that things are set up, if that were to happen, anybody who's clicked accept on the let us route your traffic would just immediately be routed to us, and we would snap that traffic up right away. And we've done it one time before with Polygon, where they were having an outage, and they sent all their traffic over to us. We actually had the infrastructure spun up and waiting for them. It took a little longer for them to route it than it took for us to stand up the infrastructure to cover it. So,
also, what chains are you supporting right now? What chains are you supporting?
We support Ethereum Classic, and Polygon, and we also support, like, basically all the test nets. You can get also you can get Beacon Chain from us if you need that. We just recently added the new test net. It's called what's it called?
What's it? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Ethereum.
It's Hulesky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we just added Hulesky support, so that's probably the newest one that we support. We have the capacity to add more networks, but we're sort of waiting on the economics of it to make sense, right? So we have an Optimism ready, or basically an optimism version of it ready. And there's so many forks off of optimism. Like we can support Blast, we can support,
right?
Yeah. Base. We were ready to support those guys as soon as we have, because like right now, basically, I think they're only using internally pre-authorized providers. But the second that they're ready for it, we can.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily.
Yeah, it's not necessarily economical for somebody to provide those services, not because it's not economical for you guys to do it, but who would pay for it when you can go onto the base base and
as long as you can get it for free and it's decent, it's at the current scale, then there's no reason for us to turn that on yet as Rivet. Now that said, so much of this stuff, like the routing system that Infura points to us with, that system is currently the under construction DIN piece that we've been working on, right? The centralized infrastructure network.
And that will be really interesting and exciting.
That's where I think infrastructure is headed. I really do.
Are you guys only focused EVM? Because I know Solana could probably use some help.
We are not going to be able to help Solana's situation anytime soon.
For those guys.
There are some really smart people on DIN though that are working on it. And
cool.
And are wanting to support that as part of DIN.
Hey, we should. I don't know what's public and what's not, but I know you guys announced alongside Consensus and some of the people like EG, who's our friend, DIN, the decentralized infrastructure network at East Denver and stuff like that. We should do a hang session where we talk about what that might become and what's publicly allowed to be talked about. I think it's a decentralized network, so everything is an idea and publicly kosher to talk about as far as I'm concerned, but I'm not a part of it. I just that's my feelings.
I'm definitely not sharing anything secret today here. And there are some of those things, but they're far removed from the practicals. The things that have already happened, the things that have been built, those are public. So we can talk about those. It's an exciting project, and I think that really ultimately, if we're going to have a system that delivers on the promise of decentralized web, if Web3 is going to be a thing, if the metaverse is going to be a thing, if we want to build a thing that is not going to be meddled with by people who should just leave well enough alone, then we need decentralized infrastructure. It has to be part of the picture, right?
It's going to be a thing.
Yeah,
except for we won't call it Web3 anymore. It'll just be like
it'll be the web. It'll be
that slide that I sent, is all about, right? We will go to it'll be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, something around there, and people won't talk about it. They'll be like, "Oh, what database do you use?" And they'll be like, "Oh, I'm using we're using our own L3 on Ethereum, right? Or we're using this thing called Arbitrum because there's better compute power on chain, and we need that for our solution. Or we're using this thing or that thing, or some chain or database we don't know about. But it's essentially going to be the same as the argument between, like, do you use Mongo or SQL or this or that?
Right.
What did you guys actually? One of the years at ETH Denver, you guys had these like custom made like wooden tags that said ask me about my bazillion terabytes of data.
Right. It was because Flume, one of the things we built for a hackathon that ended up being kind of core to our stack, the indexing part of our service, we found that the most efficient database to use was SQLite. So ask us about our in kind of absurdly, shockingly large number of terabyte sized SQL data or SQLite databases, right? I think I still have one of those around. I'm not sure what it's up to now.
What did it say?
SQLite is still the best.
Like, ask me about my 5 terabytes of data.
Yeah, ask me about my 10 terabyte SQLite database. Something like that. Because SQLite doesn't typically get used that way.
I just love that there was a place in the world we could hang out where that was cool.
Yep. Oh man, the default database that loads up anytime you start a project using React is the one that you can actually use to scale up a blockchain infrastructure indexing service the most efficiently. It's pretty crazy.
It's just so funny. Like I remember going having guys explain that to me, and while you're explaining it to me, people walking up to you guys going, 10 terabytes on a SQLite database, and then it would start this conversation, and just that we were in a place where we weren't the only two people wanting to learn and talk about this was just so rad, right? And it
was super fun. Yeah. And then having people come up and literally raise the exact same things that we had come up in the discussion we had about it when we first tried it, people, did you try this? Well, yeah, but it, as it turns out, and those conversations can just roll. And that's the beauty of open source too, is you don't have to
probably why you guys secret. It's probably why you guys built that reputation amongst the community as those you want to scale or you want infrastructure and you have a question or something breaks, that's the team to talk to, right? That's why you guys built that. So I like that you
and why we built it open source, right? So people can actually go take a look and see that what we're talking about is what we're actually doing.
Yeah, I like that because we just talked about this. Was it on? No, it wasn't on this. It was on a different call. But the early days of scaling web companies and stuff was get customers, build a moat, make it impossible for people to leave, right? And then what we learned in crypto, we always talked about if you're building some new chain, some new thing, and you're trying to resist creating a bridge or something like that, it means you're super insecure in your product, right? And you're just trying to keep people in. But if you think you have a better product, create all the bridges in the world because you want everyone to come to you. Like what you're saying, you guys are have built something so meaningful to the industry and you understand your value that you just literally open sourced all your stuff to make it so anyone can utilize that and scale. But your place in that when they need help, you're the first team everyone goes to for that scale.
Right. Well, there's this weird. Yeah. There's a tendency for people to be afraid of open source when they first think about the idea of selling a product, right? They think we need this proprietary thing that nobody can copy. Well, not in software, right? In software, the more people that copy it, the more ingrained your software is in the ecosystem, right? So getting it out, it's sort of like giving your music away. Like the classic Trent Reznor quote said, if you want to be famous, give away your music, right? Because you want as many people as possible to listen to it. You want as many people as possible playing this code. And that's sort of the first principles element of our companies. When Austin and I very first met, we both agreed on this, and this is something that we built into the DNA of Rivet.
Well, I mean, we're building for an industry that we all want so badly to be borderless and decentralized and scale, right? And you don't get there by being a closed participant, right?
If you're defending your product with lawyers, you've already done it wrong.
Yeah, 1,000%. So hey, we have a minute left. I want to make sure we should point everyone to Rivet.cloud. You can follow Greg at Design Heretic. It's been on the screen the whole time, so that's easy.
X and Warpcast if you guys are Warpcasters.
Yeah, where else do we follow you? What should we go? Oh, you said Warpcast. I started to use it. Should I use it more?
Yes. I host a couple channels too. I host Lord of the Rings LOTR, and I also host Cypherpunk channel.
Oh, text me the links to those after.
I will.
I'll sign on and let me double check right now while we're still on. Is your username on there also at Design Heretic?
Correct.
So mine is, I think it's the same, but let me just double check. I tried to get at Alon and some that was faster than me already got it.
There's a Greg on their dev team over at the Farcaster wherever the Farcaster guys have their home headquarters. They have a Greg already, so I couldn't get Greg. So
that's so I got I'm at Alon Gorin. So if you use that, everyone who's using that, follow me. I'll jump into to the channels that that Greg hosts. Oh, perfect. Yeah. Oh, and you have Rivet on there too, so I'm gonna follow Rivet on there, of
Yep.
course. Sweet.
They don't have a very good
yeah,
multi-account interface, so I don't do much with that account. But yeah,
there's no streaming there, right? I guess we could link to the stream, but there's no streaming on there yet. We should.
Forecaster has some other projects that do streaming, but not on Warpcast.
Cool. All right. Well, Rankin, anything that I forgot before we hang up?
No, I think we're good.
Cool. All right, guys. We'll keep everyone updated on Rivet and awesome things that are happening. We'll make sure that Greg joins us more often. I think we want to try to have a guest on almost every show, and then I think that we should do things like we used to do also, and have kind of like hang sessions on just a certain topic, right? So, cross-chain gaming, DeFi, any IP, whatever the heck we want. And I'm getting a note that our next meeting is waiting for us. So, Greg, thank you so much for joining us. We will see everyone soon. Make sure to follow at DGB Ventures on Twitter and on the YouTube channel, and follow Rankin and I directly also, so you get notified of all these things and all the hang sessions we do. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Have a great week.
Good day, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you, Greg. I just ended the stream. We got to jump to the next call. We had 398 people that were